Welcome everyone to today's sample lecture from Alberto de Salvatierra. Sorry. I will just start with a quick introduction of myself. So my name is Arista. I am a student recruitment ambassador here at the University of Calgary. I work with the undergraduate recruitment team, so today I'm here to answer any admissions questions that you may have at the end of the lecture and to help direct you to the right resources if you have any additional questions. I'm actually a co-op student as well in my current role, and I'm getting a minor in architectural studies, so I'm really excited for today's lecture. Today, as I said, we're joined by Alberto de Salvaterra, who is an associate dean and associate professor of urbanism and data in the School of Architecture, Planning, and Landscaping. And they will be doing a sample lecture for all of us to show what it is like to be a student in the School of Architecture, Planning, and Landscaping. So sit back, enjoy the lecture, and imagine yourself as a future UCalgary student in Professor Salvaterra's class. At the end of the presentation, I'll be doing a short admissions presentation to share more about applying to the Bachelor of Design in City Innovation. There will also be a question and answer period at the end for all of your questions, so feel free to save your questions until the end. Before getting started, I would just like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, and that the City of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. The City of Calgary has always been my home, but I am only a second generation Canadian on my dad's side, reminding me of how thankful I am for being able to attend school, live, and work on the lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tsuut'ina First Nations, and the Stoney Nakoda Nations, which reminds me how important it is to remember that everything done at the University of Calgary campus starts with these lands. Please keep this in mind throughout today's sample lecture. Now I will pass this over to Alberto for the presentation.
Arista, thank you again for that introduction. Everyone, welcome. Good evening from Calgary. If you're joining us from a different time zone, good morning or good afternoon. It is my pleasure to host you here today. As Arista mentioned, I'm Professor Alberto de Salvatierra. I'm Associate Dean, Undergraduate, and Associate Professor of Urbanism and Data in Architecture at the School of Architecture, Planning, and Landscape. Not landscaping, landscape, otherwise known as SAPL. So for today's sample lecture, I thought I would present a multi-year research initiative titled the Civic Commons Catalyst that will exhibit and also demonstrate the ways in which the Bachelor of Design and City Innovation program, or the BDCI program, will prepare you for a career in city innovation or to prepare you to undertake one of our professional graduate degrees, either a Master of Architecture, Master of Planning, or a Master of Landscape Architecture. Now, some of the slides take a little bit of time to load, so if part of what I'm saying doesn't seem to totally align with what you're seeing, that's okay. It'll take maybe a few seconds of lag. So the Civic Commons Catalyst, supporting transformative revitalization of underutilized spatial assets in Albertan cities, is a multi-year research project that was originally seed funded and made possible by the Alberta Real Estate Foundation. So we're, of course, as always, very thankful for their support. Currently, this is also a initiative that we're working on with various municipalities, including the city of Calgary. So what is the Civic Commons Catalyst? The goal of the Catalyst is to take underutilized spatial assets in cities and catalyze them into positive assets for the community that can revitalize their downtowns. So by identifying zones of opportunity, assets can be networked together and help focus strategies for economic development and impact investment. Now, just like the Bachelor of Design and Innovation program, which is a transdisciplinary degree, this project also engages with a number of disciplines: urban design, sociology, future studies or strategic foresight, public policy, finance innovation, human geography, and all these together allow for the creation of a catalog. This catalog is one that enables an analysis of various layers of information, various layers of data within the city to have a very holistic understanding of the sort of challenges that are present within the urban fabric and what can we as designers, as agents of the built environment, do to have a positive impact. So this was this exploratory axonometric that you see on the right side is the kind of inherent structure of the research. And all of these phases of the project, these different categories of the project, were sort of synthesized together to also inform the creation of strategic interventions. So, and those strategic interventions were subsequently mined for their opportunities to generate project briefs or de-risked project frameworks for the city. As I mentioned, we're currently working with the city of Calgary and the city of Airdrie, but we've also worked with other municipalities. So also as I go, I will probably also make comments about the sort of things that you can expect to do. And actually everything within my presentation is something that you'll be able to execute on your own by yourself by the end of the 4 years of the BDCI program. For example, here you're looking at a sectional perspective of a proposal that we did as part of this project. This requires things like V-Ray and Rhino and Photoshop and knowing the Adobe suite. These are softwares that we will teach in our courses, and therefore an image like the one you're seeing currently is one that you can expect to be able to do by the time that you graduate from this program. But let's dive into the research structure of the Civic Commons Catalyst and how we began this initiative and how it's progressed in the last half decade since we first started this. So first, we engaged with stakeholders from 13 programmatic themes, resulting in 25 interviews and 16 hours of audio. These were organized around 13 different kind of programmatic archetypes that include things such as commercial, cultural, educational, governmental, infrastructural, agricultural, etc. And these are the various organizations that we engaged with in order to understand what are the challenges that a city today is facing, particularly downtown Calgary. What are the infrastructures that they need in order to facilitate their work, and where do they see the city going? A lot of our work started during the pandemic, during COVID. So a lot of our questions were also trying to understand what would be both the short and long-term impacts of COVID-19, and how could we begin to plan for that future, the one that we're in right now. We also conducted a horizon scanning process on over 400 media articles, editorials, and reports, resulting in the identification of 64 signals and trends. So horizon scanning process is a research methodology from the discipline of strategic foresight or future studies. So as I mentioned already, the BDCI is a transdisciplinary degree that allows for a wide holistic sort of array of tools and methods in order to understand and really capture the vast complexities of urban environments and the networks that connect them. So here we can see a three-dimensional graph that maps impact and strength and time of the various 64 signals and trends that we identified. Here we have a chord diagram that again maps the approximately possible 4,096 connections between the 64 signals and trends. These are organized with using a modified STEEP framework that correspond to social, technological, environmental, economic, and usually P is reserved for politics, but was turned into planning. So these were the 64 signals and trends, which ones are going to have the most impact within our current condition, right? Any sort of research, any sort of work that seeks to understand the fabric of a city can't only think of solutions for the present, but also must incorporate insights for trajectories of the future, given the long time spans for modifications of the built environment. So this inclusion of strategic foresight and horizon scanning as a research methodology within our work was an intentional way in order to ensure that the solutions that we can offer to our partner municipalities like the city of Calgary are still going to remain relevant 5, 10, and 15 years from today. In addition to the sociological aspects of conducting interviews with various stakeholders or the strategic foresight and horizon scanning processes, we also analyzed the public policy of 30 statutory and non-statutory documents at the intersection of finance and urban planning at the federal, provincial, and municipal levels. This was to understand what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are the gaps of various policies in order to effectuate change? Are there things that we need to adjust? Are there things that we can kind of catalyze further as facilitated by these plans? We also looked at various municipal specific plans like Calgary Transportation Plan, the Municipal Development Plan, or site-specific strategies like the Calgary Parking Strategy or the Flood Resilience Plan in order to understand what is the interconnection between the site-specific strategies, the municipal plans, and which communities are those applicable to. As part of this work, we are funded primarily by the Greater Downtown Calgary sort of department. So we're primarily looking at Eau Claire, Chinatown, Downtown West, the Downtown Core, the East Village, and the Beltline. In addition to the sociology and the strategic foresight and the public policy, we also wrote a research brief on finance innovation for civic assets in order to understand what are the financial tools that a city like Calgary can deploy to facilitate various projects. Because as designers, as architects or landscape architects or planners, there's no shortage of creativity, of course. We can always imagine and visualize really fantastical visions for the future. But if we can't also begin to suggest, prescribe, or even inform on the ways in which those things can become practical realities, then our work is going to be not as successful and not as widely applicable. So figuring out things like finance innovation and what tools the city can use in order to facilitate some of these projects was part of our work. And here we analyzed 40 different tools across 8 different categories: bonds, compensations, grants, loans, pooled resources, fees, funds, and partnerships, and various different projects across Canada. This is another visualization example that you can expect to be able to do very early on in your degree. In the second semester, Design 213, you'll be learning ArcGIS, which is what would enable you to do the kind of the left side of this image. The other two you can probably already do right now, given that they're just regular boxes with text on them. So again, here are the 8 different types of finance tools and how the general structure of it sort of unfolds. In addition to the previous sort of steps I've already mentioned, we also assembled 100 data sets and produced over 187 maps to aid in geospatial data production of the catalog. These are in order to continue to complement the public policy, the finance innovation, the sociology, the strategic foresight, and using geospatial data, right? Layering different portions of information, right? Different sources of information in order to understand and reveal new insights about cities. Here we have what we called landscapes of risk. So in the city of Calgary, we have the flood zone of the river. We have noise. We have in black all the parking lots. So when the city wonders, oh, the walkability or not of a particular area, if it's covered in asphalt, right, then it's going to be much harder for people to engage. At the same time, we also can examine different types of amenities, things like bars and restaurants and galleries, and also businesses, right, and parks. All of these are sort of categorized around the 13 programmatic archetypes that I mentioned earlier. And here we have a mapping that includes every single possible different business in the city of Calgary. So this data set was assembled from a variety of sources, including manually going street by street on Google Earth and Google Maps to map every single business, right? In addition to those that the city could provide from their open data sources. And you can begin to see already, does the city focus its attention on areas that already have a high density of amenities because those are areas that are already working well? We want to continue to support it with infrastructure, or do we instead sort of focus on the areas that maybe are not as dense with various sort of urban amenities and therefore need more attention? We also, going now into the field of urban design, analyzed over 20 civic common project precedents across other Canadian cities in order to understand what are the types of projects that other cities have done within the kind of mandate of continuing the civic commons, right? These sort of spaces that would allow for development of either more pedestrian spaces or generally activate, revitalize, and catalyze urban centers. Here we have some enabling some diagrams of the enabling environments behind those different types of projects and partnerships. And this is sort of a mapping of each of those projects compared to one another. So even though these don't have a particular legend, you can begin to see the spatiality of the different characteristics of these projects. We also created a framework for the organization of the entire city of Calgary around urban form, urban relationships, urban placemaking, and urban influences. These also translate into the 13 archetypes, like I mentioned before, educational, agricultural, industrial, etc. And at the very end, we have all the various programs. This was work that would enable and facilitate the production of our three-dimensional digital twin of the city of Calgary. So we've done this really deep analysis of the city of Calgary. Here we have everything that's in the educational layer. So every single building that has something to do with education is located in purple. And I'm just going to go through each of these slides one by one. So we have educational, we have medical, governmental, ecological, agricultural, industrial, infrastructural, commercial, financial, residential, recreational, cultural, spiritual. Hopefully we were able to see all of those, but if not, that's okay. This is the sort of summative, this is a screenshot of our 1 GB Rhino model, probably one of the most detailed mappings of the city of Calgary ever made, that indexes every single building and every single purpose of every single building, and is allowing us to understand with a high degree of precision where different opportunities lie. Is an undeveloped site or an underutilized spatial asset, if we were to be converted into something else, is it going to play nice with existing infrastructures and networks, or is it too far removed to have an impact, right? This is what can be enabled through geospatial data mapping. And this here is Rhinoceros. Rhino is a three-dimensional software that you'll be taught starting in your very first year. And you'll have at least 2 to 3 courses that continue to teach three-dimensional software skills like Rhino, but also including things such as Blender or parametric tools. So all those things together allowed us to produce a catalog of over 1,300 underutilized spatial assets that's being used to identify these zones of opportunity. So here in purple, we can see all the various underutilized spatial assets. Now, of course, this was work that was done in 2021. So the landscape of underutilization in the city of Calgary has changed drastically in that now there's much less purple, particularly because since we started this project, the city has gone and converted various vacant offices into um, residential conversions, so new apartments and housing stock for the downtown, and other types of infrastructure, such as parking lots or parks, are being um, renewed with new kind of programmatic interventions and tactical urbanism projects, of which we have a few examples that we'll show at the end. So these 1,300 civic assets included 197 vacant buildings, 395 vacant floors across 151 partially vacant buildings and towers, 116 vacant lots and plots of land, and 622 elements of public and civic infrastructure. So here are just a few more images of the axons that we generated, and these are produced using Rhinoceros and Illustrator. Again, those are softwares that you learn within the first year, and these are not complicated drawings. Even though they look fancy, they're not complicated. So everything that you've seen here so far is something that you can expect to be able to do by the time that you graduate from this program. We also included the plus 15 as of infrastructure to analyze. It holds within it great potential, and unfortunately within the city, particularly since the pandemic, it's been somewhat underutilized. So what are potential ideas and activations to better utilize this really fantastic one-of-a-kind network that doesn't exist in all places? So finally, at the end of the first year, everything I've mentioned we did only in 1 year. We categorized 50 strategic interventions across 7 different scales: person, building, landscape, block, neighborhood, city, or province. These classify into 3 different types of strategic interventions, which include single asset, asset class, and asset cluster. A singular asset are those that, through the sheer size and gravity of their program, can single-handedly um, have an impact on the neighborhood in which they reside. One example I like to use within Calgary is the Calgary Public Library. It was one of the first large-scale institutional investments within East Village, and since then we've had other buildings follow suit, like Platform Calgary, some redevelopment adjacent to the Roadwalks District, and various other really interesting developments. We also have asset class. These are types of assets like office towers or vacant office towers that all have similar challenges. And if we find a solution for one, it could probably be applied to a number of them. And then we have asset clusters. These are dissimilar types of spatial or underutilized spatial sort of conditions that maybe can be approached wholesale because they're all sort of geographically clustered around a particular location. Now, why did we come up with 50 different strategic interventions? When we first started this project, the city was primarily keeping its attention towards office to residential conversions. However, as the image that you'll see in your screen shortly will reveal, there isn't actually a lot of residential stock within the downtown core. Everything in blue that you see here are apartment buildings, literally making a donut around downtown. In blue, we have hotels, and then we have the remaining buildings in red, yellow, orange, and green as potential office buildings above 35 meters that could be candidates for conversion. So of the 373 buildings that are taller than 35 meters across the city of Calgary, 310 of them are in our study area. And once we subtract the 152 apartments and condos and the 16 hotels, we get about 142 commercial office towers to consider. Of those, only really 16 to 36, depending on which criteria you use, are viable candidates for conversion. So even if we had all the money in the world, of all the buildings that we have in the city, only 16 to 36 are viable for conversion. And that's not really counting kind of the business case of the conversion itself. So this really underscores that we have a need to come up with other types of solutions, not just office to residential conversion. And that is a program that the city has initiated and has very successfully converted in the phase 1, 5 buildings. And I think now the total number of buildings that is either completed or in process is somewhere between 11 and 13, which is one of the most ambitious programs like of its kind in Canada. So in year 2, we took those 20 strategic interventions and we developed 6 into project briefs, sort of de-risked project frameworks for the city and industry in collaboration with our partners. As part of our work and as part of the things that we teach in DECI is how do we engage with municipalities? How do we engage with the professional community and industry? And we ensure that all the type of work, whether it's built work or research or other types of designs, have to be applied and useful to make positive change, right? And we're sort of thinking about our clients and these very real scenarios. So the very first project brief that we've created is called Parking Plasticity. This is a project that imagines what if we took all the parking lots in the city of Calgary, and if you're from Calgary, you know we have quite a bit of them, and we instead allow them to become temporary amenities for things like farmers markets or concerts, or during the pandemic, right, perhaps staging grounds for things like temporary programs, including food distribution or other types of necessary infrastructural support. This was a project that we did in collaboration also with Reef Technologies, which is the owner of Impark, the largest parking lot operator within the city of Calgary. So on the right, on the left, you have a physical model, a conceptual model of what this project entails, right? And on the right, you have an exploded axonometric that shows different types of geospatial data layers and how these are being used to kind of analyze and provide answers towards this particular proposal. So we have parking plasticity. The next one is agritech district. This is sort of looking at how we can utilize the empty office buildings in downtown core and perhaps facilitate a adjustment of our oil and gas identity towards agriculture and agri-tech industries, given our positioning within the prairies and the food basket of Canada. Then we have crypto cores, right? Looking at crypto and blockchain and how these technologies can be used to facilitate transactions, but also different types of ledgers and bonds that can initiate and facilitate the city with novel finance innovation mechanisms to fund work. Also, given the crypto landscape within Canada in terms of policies and regulations, Alberta specifically would be quite well positioned to take advantage of this technology. Then we have EcoPunk Enterprise as sort of examining the potentials of a large scale kind of federally funded kind of uh, energy project. This is looking at the potential of waste to energy facilities as an opportunity to address the public realm and the built environment. Fifth, we have Halcyon Hub. This is looking at the possibility of downtown to host a large-scale transportation hub connecting Edmonton with Calgary, perhaps through a Hyperloop-esque or type project like Transpod, while also connecting through rail, Banff with downtown with the airport, for instance. So looking at what are the various institutional players and how could a large scale kind of transportation infrastructure also facilitate a kind of innovation district that would allow localization of some of this technology and impact investment. And then finally, the sixth project that we've worked on is titled Rainbow Ramblas. This is a project that imagines what if we pedestrianized particular laneways or alleyways that are underutilized, that have vacancies, that can help support nightlife or restaurants or general amenities within the downtown. So here we were examining the potential for certain avenues within the Beltline to host these sorts of activities and changes. And again, on the left, you have a conceptual model, and on the right, you have these exploded axonometrics, both of which are things that you can absolutely do within your work. So at the end of year 2 of our work, we decided to host an exhibition at our City Building Design Lab, which is our downtown campus for only one more calendar year, after which we'll be moving to a new building, which I'll show towards the end of our presentation. But this is a 4-foot by 8-foot model of the city of Calgary with all its buildings in the purple. The different shades of purple represent the different levels of vacancy. So here are all our previous reports. Each of the slides I showed, I showed, I think, one on sociology, one on horizon scanning, one on public policy. Those are all about 40-page reports. So I showed you just one slide of what is about 40 pages of information. So in this exhibition, we should show each of those spreads. Here we have a few more images of the exhibition that we made of our work. And I think I'll just flip through these. Here we have a model, more views of our models. And this again is our gallery in the City Building Design Lab, which is located literally next to City Hall in downtown. Here's a view of those large axonometrics and the models that you see there. And of course, through all this work, which was first supported by the Belarusian Foundation, we were very lucky to get additional support directly from the city of Calgary. So we were able to secure a $350,000 grant. And the reason I mention this is one of the benefits of a program like the BDCI and SAPL specifically is that we have a very robust lab system, uh, ecosystem. So if any of you are interested in doing research, particularly over the summer, there are a number of labs that focus on different types of projects and activities that you can apply for. So the lab that I run here at SAPL is titled the Center for Civilization, but we also have labs such as the Laboratory for Integrative Design, which focuses on digital fabrication and robotics. We also have the Urban Lab, which is more strictly around planning. We have the Aesthetic, which uses AI, computational design, and things like Python and scripting. So we have a number of labs that are active. And if this is something that's of interest, our faculty routinely hire grad students. And of course, now that we have the BDCI undergraduate students, I'm currently employing 4 undergrad students and about to hire 3 more at the end of this semester. So as I mentioned before, we have agreements with the City of Lethbridge, and we've had agreements with the City of Lethbridge and the City of Airdrie, also work with the City of Medicine Hat and the town of Oakton. So what are some other projects that we've done as part of the Civic Commons Catalyst initiative? As one of the offshoot projects, we've done a project evaluation matrix built on the 10 principles of the Greater Downtown Calgary Plan, which is going to be used in the selection of projects funded by the city. So by creating an evaluation framework that uses an existing policy document that the city has produced, we're able to add value to the ways in which they're wanting each of these distinct neighborhoods to serve develop, and what are the amenities that are still missing, and therefore what are the projects that are most going to secure that future that they want to see. We've also partnered with other industry firms like Stantec, if any of you are familiar. And a few years ago, we completed the Downtown West Visioning Report, which was followed by the co-hosting of a downtown design charrette organized in collaboration with the city to help determine scope of projects and investments best suited to revitalize downtown West. So as part of your work in the Bachelor of Design and City Innovation program, we have courses like the Work Integrated Learning Studio, which will enable you to be placed within an office, right? Or with a municipality to do work that's of import, of current needs, and allows you to then really engage with these real world variables. And of course, we don't just do research, we don't just do maps and 3-dimensional models or physical models, but we also do other things like design builds. So we've expanded our work with our municipalities and now working directly with communities. And I'm going to share a few examples. So first here we have Strata. This was part of the Future of Stephen Avenue initiative, funded by the City of Calgary. And this is a bench located within Stephen Avenue that's meant to be both a bench and a bicycle rack. And here we have an image showing people interacting with it. This is meant as a piece of public infrastructure, right? In order to test out new models of urban furniture. And this was something that we manufactured in-house. So the woodworking, the painting, the assembly, this is all something that we did in-house. Metalworking, we had some assistance with that. But I believe in our new building facilities, we also have extensive metalworking capacities. And there's a piece of furniture that is painted on 2 sides in 2 different ways. So from one direction, you see yellow, from the other, you see green. And here you can see the switch between both, where you see yellow on one side and green on the other. So this was one of our very first built projects, and we're now currently working on 2 more. This is actually a continuation of Rainbow Ramblas. This was first began as a research project as to how can we revitalize laneways and alleyways within Calgary. And here we have a proposal for exactly just that. These are a set of temporary urban furniture projects and pavement treatments that begin to zone out different areas for different types of activations, which could include kind of a farmer's market or outdoor gallery or some sort of event with food trucks. Here, the kind of structure with curtains is a small pavilion that can facilitate performances or act as a general kind of wayfinding tool within the sort of larger proposal. And here we have an axonometric that sort of shows these areas of activation, right? This is next to a parking lot that still needs to be used, hence we can still see kind of cars in the parking lot, but you know, these laneways, these alleyways hold huge potential. And in the BDCI program, we are thinking about all the ways in which we can have a positive impact on the built environment, right? And it's not just about building new things, it's also about rehabilitating the things that we already have. So this project will launch in the summer of 2025 and probably be able to, we'll host a few different events. This is in collaboration with the CDA, the Calgary Downtown Association. We also have a project that is going up later this week on Friday, titled Iceberg. This is a project funded by CMLC and the International Avenue BRZ. These are just the renders. These are not what they actually look like currently. Those pictures are not yet available. But if you're in Calgary and if you're attending Chinook Blast, these will be located not in the current place where they're being shown, but in at the end of either 7th or 8th Avenue, immediately adjacent and overlooking Fort Calgary and the park there in East Village. Here's just one last image of this project that again is going up at the end of this week for Chinook Blast. So I just wanted to go through a kind of a very kind of quick summary of one project or kind of an umbrella project that we've done, but also showcase the wide breadth of different skills and topics that you can expect to be able to learn and acquire expertise on as part of your Bachelor of Design and Innovation degree. And everything that I've shown here is something that absolutely 100% you'll be able to do after the 4 years. Because again, none of these things are particularly sophisticated kind of visualizations. They might look like that, which is intentional, but they're actually quite easy to do. So things like Rhino, Grasshopper, Blender, Python scripting, right? These are all things that we'll teach you. ArcGIS, the Adobe Suite, Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, right? These are all things that you can expect to learn. So I think we'll stop there. I want to leave enough time for questions, which I think will be handled by some of the other team members on the call.
Thank you, Alberto. There's been a couple of admissions questions in the chat, but I'll kind of get to answering those in a little bit more detail after I do the admissions presentation here. If you could just stop sharing your screen so that I can share mine, just to go through my quick little presentation here.
There, I think they're still sharing? No.
It could just be slow loading. There we go. Now we're good.
There we go.
Share. Just current slide. Sorry, my screen is doing weird things. That's what I want. Sorry, everyone. There we go. From current slide. Okay. There we go. So, we'll kind of start as a kind of broad glance at what UCalgary is and some kind of fun general statistics here. So we have about 29,000 undergraduate students. So this really gives you an idea of how many students we have and how large our UCalgary community is. Our UCalgary Dinos have also won 49 U Sports national championships. So students have access to lots of excellent sporting events, intramurals, and rec sports and active living facilities, and overall a really strong health and wellness centered community. UCalgary is also Canada's entrepreneurial university and a top startup creator amongst research universities. We have the Hunter Hub for Entrepreneurial Thinking, which is a place where changemakers and innovators gather for pitch competitions and networking sessions. The Hunters Hub reflects the spirit of the city of Calgary, known for its startup ecosystems and economic growth. It's a place for our students to truly start something. We also have a 96.3% after graduation employment rate and a 95% undergraduate retention rate. So, this really goes to show the quality of the student experience here on campus, that students who stay in their first year of studies will stay with us until graduation. Next slide. There we go. So now going into kind of those admissions requirements here, this is kind of general admissions requirements that we have for all of our programs going to be based on 5 faculty specific courses from your grade 12 school courses. Whatever program you are applying to is going to change those specific course requirements. So some programs do require some additional requirements like the Bachelor of Health Sciences, fine arts like dance, music, and visual studies. So if you are interested in any of those, they will require some supplementary pieces. And then all students, no matter what program you are applying to, must demonstrate English language proficiency. So if anyone would like more information about that, please drop a question in the chat and I'll send a link there after I'm done this little presentation where you can find more details. There's numerous ways that students can kind of meet that requirement. Um, Now going in a little bit more specific requirements for the Bachelor of Design in City Innovation. So you have to have English at kind of that kind of uh, Alberta 30-1 level or equivalent, Alberta Mathematics 30-1 or equivalent, and then one of either Physics 30, Chemistry 30, or Biology 30 or equivalent to that. And then you would only need one of those three, and then two approved courses, where one could be also an approved option. So those are kind of your fun classes you take in high school, and the estimated competitive admissions average we're looking for is kind of in and around that mid 80s, and that is really dependent on the pool of applicants we have each year. Um, and then we're just looking at those kind of overall 5 faculty-specific courses and kind of taking the average from those courses. Um, then we go on to have some important dates that are coming up in this kind of 2024, 2025 admissions cycle. As you can see, applications are already open for both international and domestic students. So if you have not already applied, do so as soon as possible, as the applications for the fall 2025 intake will close on March 1st, with unofficial transcripts and documents being due on March 15th. These are some really good dates to keep in mind. They're also on our website for you to see at any time, and feel free to take a picture of this slide. But these are just really good dates to keep in mind as you go forth in kind of this timeline and admissions cycle in general. Um, then this one is just kind of our connect with us slide. So if you'd like to speak with a region specific recruiter or our admissions team, you can kind of scan that one QR code there. Our recruiters are region specific, so it does depend where you're living. And then we also have our view books here as well, where you can scan the QR code and take a look at. Along with on the side, we have all of our social media as well. So follow us on Facebook, our Instagram, and our YouTube. This lecture will be posted on our YouTube a little later in the week for you to kind of go back and look at if you need to. And then we do also have a podcast, which is hosted by me right now for season 9. So definitely tune into that. It's just kind of some more general admissions information and kind of fun facts about Calgary and stuff like that. And these are just some more contacts and ways to connect with us and learn a bit more about Calgary. Um, and yeah, that's kind of my little presentation. I'll stop sharing so that I can look at the chat as well. And if we have any um, in the
I can
Q&A
jump in and
box.
give you some questions. There's some IB questions. What are the requirements for the IB?
Yes, IB does have different ones. I can give you the link in the chat for kind of our IB specific ones. Um, Let me just bring it up here for you. The
Perfect.
best way if you're ever in doubt, though, definitely contact one of our recruiters or admissions team. They're a great resource. But I'll bring that up to put in the chat.
And I'll just step in. There were a few questions about the grades, so we always encourage everyone to apply. It is a competitive program, so as we were saying, it just depends on how many students apply at that time. So we are recommending mid 80s, but if you're not quite there, we still encourage you to apply in hopes that we can support you in your application.
We do also have our equitable and inclusive admissions pathway for domestic students. So if you are just like just short of that 80s, but you have like excelled in another area, then it's great to submit something through there as well. Um, you can find more details of that on our website as well.
There's a note, we are a fall intake only, so no winter intake. So we are just a fall intake. So most of our program is written, so we take fall winter courses. So we won't be able to start you in winter, but hopefully we can accommodate you in your next available fall. There was some questions on admissions fees. So the fee
Our
you pay your admission fee is for early admission, or do you wait for later?
For admissions fee, so is just to clarify, are you speaking of like your acceptance fee that you're paying or like tuition after you've accepted? Just want to clarify that.
Yeah, it says admission fee, so I maybe want to clarify. You pay for a fee to apply, you then pay
Yes.
for a deposit, and
Yes.
then your courses are due later in the fall and later in the winter term.
Yes, yeah, so that's correct. So the deadline to accept your offer, I believe, is May 1st. So you just have to have that paid before that date, the acceptance fee, and then tuition once you've accepted and everything is typically like in the fall semester after you've started, and then in the winter and so on and so forth.
Perfect. I'll talk a little bit about transfer credit. Transfer credit would be evaluated once admitted. Our BDCI program and courses are very specific to U of C. So the BDCI courses probably aren't credited, but we do have some open electives that some can be reviewed depending where you're coming from. A college or a diploma program may not qualify, but a post-secondary transfer may, and that would be reviewed further into your program depending on the concentration you pick.
Janelle, I'm just going to jump in here about the transfer credit. So, hi everyone, my name is Sarah. I am the undergrad program specialist. So, I work at SAPL and I work very closely with the BDCI students here. So, in terms of transfer credit, one thing to keep in mind is when you apply to U of C, your transfer credits will be initially assessed by the admissions team. So, you will get they will be the ones to determine if you get anything specific or something generic. So it goes through there first. And then when you get to U of C in a degree program, depending on what kind of specific transfer credit you want to use it towards. So for BDCI, if you're using for your open electives, there's usually no issues. If you're looking to see if specific transfer credit could be used in lieu of some of the BDCI requirements, if they are non-SAPL courses, so typically non-design courses, you will likely need to then work with the relevant faculty to ensure that it's assessed first to see if it could be anything specific. So I just want to highlight that for a bit because I want everyone to know that once you first apply and you accept your offer, the admissions team will look at what is eligible to start.
Thank you. There's just a question I want to answer verbally here instead of typing it out because it's a little bit more complicated, but their question is that they got accepted for early admission for a program, but they want to switch their program. Um, if you switch a program that you've already like accepted admission for, you would automatically be like declining that acceptance, and you'd basically be starting over again in the admissions process, if that makes sense. You do always have the option of doing like a change of program once you're already here, which oftentimes is um, more recommended for if you've already gotten into a program, but it does all depend on your situation. And I would really highly recommend reaching out to our admissions team. I can put in the site where you can get their contact information, just to kind of be able to go through your specific scenario and what that would look like for you. But generally we don't recommend you switching a program that you're applying for after you've accepted the offer.
Sarah, we also have some questions around the SATE and NATE diplomas. Could you speak a bit about the credits there and the differences between fully completing it versus a partial completion?
Sure, I can speak a little bit about it. So, when you take a program at NATE or SATE, if you complete the diploma program, you may be eligible for some post secondary transfer credit. Again, this would be assessed by the admissions team, and generally it's generic credit. And so students who have that generic credit can come in, and most likely they would apply it to the open electives, as these courses currently do not apply in lieu of any of our design courses or any of the other BDCI degree requirements. Another thing to keep in mind is sometimes we have students who have completed partially a NATE or SATE diploma. This is something that likely you won't get a block transfer credit. And again, this is something to first chat with the admissions team about that transfer credit and what are the regulations around it. So it would start there. And then if you are admitted into BDCI successfully and you want to talk about what kind of transfer credit you have and how you can use it, we can then connect at that point and we can see what's on your file and start from there.
Alberta, did you want to speak to some jobs if they don't continue on with the master? I've seen a couple of questions about that, like what the BDCI job market would entail.
Yes, and maybe while I'm talking, if I could ask either Jake or Sarah to post a link to the BDCI career kind of profile page that we have, because that has a full sort of listing of a very wide range of things that you can expect. But the BDCI program, because it teaches around a variety of very advanced softwares, including computational design, parametric design, 3D modeling, simulation, visualization, geospatial data. Even if you choose not to go into a graduate degree like a Master of Architecture, Master of Planning, or Master of Landscape Architecture, you still have a very wide range of potential career options. Whether it's a computational designer, a data analyst, a GIS specialist, a community programs manager, sustainability specialist, a drafting technician. I think the BSEC career profile has just been posted on the chat. So one of the strengths of the BSEC program, I think, in contrast to other programs, is that you're not just learning a topic, right? You're not just sitting in a classroom learning about through lectures or how to read and how to write, but you're also learning how to use 10 to 12 different softwares. You're learning how to produce stuff with your hands, both analog and digital fabrication. And all those things are things that actually carry over very well into the job market, because then it allows you to use a variety of tools and also things that just now are beginning to disrupt particular disciplines, things like AI, right? Where, you know, once these things and agents get smart enough, right? They might be able to produce entire law briefs. They might be able to analyze or summarize entire sort of things. However, in the BSI program, we're teaching everyone how to use these tools themselves. One example I like to use is drafting. Drafting used to be an entirely analog endeavor that at some point computers began to have the capacity to do drafting. Again, drafting didn't go away. Drafters are still needed, but the drafters, the people, what computer drafting replaced was just the people who didn't know how to use computers to draft, right? The ones who can only draft by hand. So in the BSF program, we're really teaching a variety of ways to use technology and tools so that as things change, you still have the capacity to be really productive, right? Rather than be replaced by those who know how to use these tools versus the ones that don't. Is it possible to apply for the Masters of Architecture program after attending the Bachelor of Design and City Innovation program? Absolutely. So the Master of Architecture program is 3 years long. However, if you do the BDCI program, with the architecture concentration, you can actually skip the first year of the Master of Architecture. So it turns into a 4+2 program rather than 4+3. So you get to skip that first year of your master's program because it's done as part of the BDCI program.
Alberto, perhaps I can jump in a little bit to give an overview of the BDCI pathways. So in BDCI, there are three different pathways. We have the general pathway, which is the most flexible and can be tailored to your design studies. And then we have two concentration pathways. So the architecture concentration and the landscape architecture concentration. So the architecture concentration or the landscape architecture concentration can be used as a bridging program into the relevant grad program with us here at SAPL. So doing the BDCI with architecture could then allow you to do the 2-year Master of Architecture instead of the 3-year program, so 4+2 there. And then likewise, if you do the the BDCI with the landscape architecture concentration, then you're able to waive the foundation year as well in the MLA, so the Master of Landscape Architecture. So again, it's a 4+2. If you do the BDCI general pathway, those relevant grad programs remain as 3. Or if you do the Master of Planning, that is always a 2-year grad program. So those are the typical pathways that students think about. I would say that if you are more interested in architecture or landscape architecture, those are great concentrations to take within BDCI. If you're more interested in the design foundations but want to explore further, then the BDCI general pathway is really great for you to tailor other courses to go along with this general pathway. And this is probably the best one to do a minor and or a certificate with your degree because there's a lot more room for you to take other courses to complement your design studies. Whereas for the concentration pathways, they are more structured. So there are less courses to tailor to what you want to do, but it's because you are putting room towards focusing on a deeper dive in one of those disciplines.
And to add to that, Sarah, thank you very much for bringing up the program guides. These are available on our website. This is the latest draft of them. So they'll be shared shortly. But you can see that the BSF program is organized around 7 different components, which include design studio, visualization courses, global citizenship, which cover history and theory of the built environment, technical courses, then sustainability, entrepreneurship, and computational design / data science. And again, we have the architecture concentration for those interested in the Master of Architecture, or the landscape architecture concentration for those interested in the MLA program. Both of these would shave off 1 year of grad school. If you're interested in the Master of Planning program, we recommend the landscape architecture concentration because it has an additional studio, an additional visualization course compared to the general pathways. The reason why there currently isn't a planning concentration specifically is the planning program itself is only 2 years, in contrast to MLA and MArch, which are 3-year programs. So we can't shave off more time of a 2-year degree. The general pathways, as Sarah already mentioned, is probably one we would recommend for students that are not considering a graduate design degree and would instead like to supplement their program with another field of study that can help them secure a job, right? And they can pick from the fields of data science and urban studies, sustainability studies, entrepreneurial thinking certificate, the health society minor, and there's a few more that are not listed here, but our history, political science, and various other things. So maybe I'll stop sharing this.
I did see too, there was some questions on some international supports. Do you have something for them, Arissa?
On
Sorry,
Sorry, I don't see
international
the question.
applications. Oh, yeah, it's international applications and international supports. I'm thinking I saw some
Gotcha.
questions.
Yeah, so the international applications are very similar to our domestic ones. It's kind of through the same spot that you can access these. I'll put the how to apply kind of guide that we have on our website in the chat here as well for you to look through. There's also the link to apply there. Up until you kind of get your acceptance, it would still go through like our admissions office. We do have like virtual appointments and you can always call the phone line once accepted and stuff like that. We do have our international student services office, which can help with like immigration and study permits and those details. But I'll put that how to apply link in the chat. And anybody can use this one as well, not just the international students, but they have a section for kind of students in Alberta, students elsewhere in Canada, and international students, and it kind of guides you through steps to apply and everything. Um, and then all applications for any students will be closing March 1st. So definitely apply as soon as possible if you haven't already.
So there's a question here, what other courses could you apply for after completing 4 years of Bachelor of Design and Innovation program? I think you mean degrees. A wide variety of degrees. If you're interested in law, if you're interested in public policy, um, if you're interested in urban forestry, there's a number of different ways that the BCI program can prepare you for, because it is transdisciplinary and it's broadly looking at issues of the built environment. So things like infrastructure, um, things related to social work or community planning, right? These are all potential options. And I think one way to think about possibilities would be to visit the BCI career profile that was also posted on the chat. I think if you scroll up, you can probably find the correct link. Also, I forgot to mention, but maybe it'd be useful to note now, we're also very proud to say that we have award-winning advising. Our undergraduate program specialist, Sarah Ha, has actually won the Best Advisor of 2024 from the entire Western region of the US and Canada. So you really won't get better advising than right here at the BCA program. So Sarah, go Sarah. Can you take two programs at the same time, dual degree or double major at UFC along with the BCI? No.
No, I can answer that question. So BDCI is a single degree program, so you cannot combine it with other degree programs. So, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Design, you can't do that, for example. Has to be just a Bachelor of Design, but you can add other things like embedded certificates or minor programs alongside BDCI. And one thing to keep in mind is BDCI is meant to be a 4-year, 120 unit degree program. If you add other things like minors or certificates, you can extend the length of this program to beyond 120 units. So it isn't always so Tetrisable, so to speak, to put all the things in, because you have to take your design foundations course alongside other requirements.
We had another question about like internships. So Sarah, do you want to clarify kind of how that works with the BDCI program?
Yeah, I can work alongside with Alberto to answer this. So with BDCI, we do not have an internship program or a co-op program, but we do have something called the Work Integrated Learning Studio, which is one of the courses you take in your final year in BDCI. So Alberto, why don't you chat a little bit about what that looks like for Work Integrated Learning Studio?
Absolutely. The Work Integrated Learning Studio is an opportunity for you and a small group of your classmates to be placed within an architecture planning or landscape architecture design office or within a municipality to work on a real world project that maybe that office or group is currently working on. So it's an opportunity to engage directly with industry, make connections, and generally network. It's located in the final year so that as you're graduating, you have a starting point for contacts should you be looking for employment. In terms of the difficulty of securing an internship, that's a very variable thing. It's hard to say how difficult it is, right? But if you're very committed to your academic work, if you perform really well in your studies, if you have really strong design portfolio, then finding an internship will actually not be very difficult because the types of skills that we're teaching are not skills that many people in Calgary actually all have all together, right? Currently, because this is a new program that just launched a few years ago, if you're expecting to have ArcGIS knowledge, traditionally that would be graduates of our planning or landscape program. If you have, having grasshopper skills or Rhino and Blender skills is something that our architecture graduates might often have, right? But things like computational design, for instance, very few people know how to use these things. And knowing all of them simultaneously is going to make BCS students extremely strong in the job market.
I'll also add that sometimes students are really focused on those specific career opportunities, but within BDCI, there are a lot of things that we work to create for you that you can take advantage of. So the biggest thing is to engage in the different types of opportunities we offer in BDCI. So one thing that we've done quite successfully and continue to do is the summer undergraduate program. So there are undergraduate awards are given out each year across campus, including BDCI. And students can use these awards to engage in undergrad research even in their first summer at BDCI. And so this past summer, we had, I think, around 8 or 9 students who engaged in undergrad research. And some of these students are already employed with the CFC, so working with Alberta on different research projects. So there is a possibility that you are working throughout your 4 years here in BDCI if you take advantage of those opportunities that we share with you.
We also already have students involved in design build projects. So we have 4 undergrad students involved with the last project I showed, the icebergs. But again, the BSR program should not be as a kind of, oh, I only work in the summer or I only work at the very end of the program. There are a number of opportunities all throughout this experience that will really enable you and position you and give you the opportunities to seek out those things. One of the things that we have here as part of the program is Design Matters lecture series. These are not only oriented towards students, but also the design professional and industry community. So these are opportunities and moments where students can network and interact with industry professionals, right? And get their foot in the door in terms of wondering about what the particular offices are working on, where are those located, can you have a visit, right? Can you meet principals? So there are a number of opportunities where you can begin to lay the seeds for future employment opportunities.
I think I am going to cut it off here. We are a little bit over time here, so there's been lots of really great questions. I don't know if you guys had any last kind of comments or notes to make before I kind of end things off here.
I'll add that someone had already shared the Ask Sapple session, so please do try to join us at Ask Sapple. That's where you can ask any questions related to Sapple programs. So that's a very good place to start. And if you have any admissions questions specifically about your current BDC application, it is very important to start with our admissions team because they can help you through all the relevant steps and all the documentation that you need and the deadlines that you need to meet.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. I could not have said that better. Our admissions team are amazing. They'll be able to help you with all sorts of things about your application and that whole process for you. But yeah, with that, I think we will close off the meeting. Thank you guys so much for coming.